just joined, welcome again. There is more space in the hall next door. Great to see so many people here tonight. We've made provisions so you can see, hear and participate as next door as you can in here. And there's some complimentary water there as well. So, no expense there. So we're going to have a bit more space. If you want to spread out, then by all means just step next door and we'll get started in literally just 1 minute. But just to make that short introduction. And then we'll get started shortly. Okay? So good evening everyone. My name is Oh, thank you. So this is obviously the popular zone. Just to repeat, there is more space next door. You can hear everything, you can see everything, and there's some refreshments there as well. Can I ask you to keep the fire exit clear at the back, please, as well? So we've got the public consultation this evening. My name is Nigel Page, I'm chairman of the Parish Council, Cuckfield Parish Council. I'll introduce Brad in a second as well. Just a couple of housekeeping rules before we get started, and then I'll hand over to the owner and the applicant in a second. So from a health and safety point of view, no planned fire alarms. We've got fire escapes behind us. Do need to keep that clear, please. Obviously the centre door and then behind us. Convenience is in the middle, and if someone needs some water, there is water in the kitchen area behind us. So let's get started. So we've got for you this evening. Parish Council, both Parish Councils realised this was an application, pre-application that was of a public interest, so we've asked the owner and the applicant to come and make a representation this evening. That's what you're going to hear, and you'll see that in a moment. From a Cuckfield Parish perspective, we're here to represent the community, and I'll ask Brad to say a few words in a moment, and then I'm going to ask Pete Bradbury, who's the West Sussex County Councillor, to talk a little bit about the process as well, because it's important to appreciate from a parish council point of view, we're not a decision-making part of this. We represent the community, we're a consultee, but it's actually the county council that makes any decision when an application comes forward, and I'll ask Peter to explain that to you. And then we'll get into the subjects in a moment. There'll be an opportunity to ask questions. We are going to have to be disciplined with that. I mean, you've got lots of questions you want to ask, but only ask questions if and when I pass the microphone to you, please. And also, just so you're aware, we are recording this evening. Hopefully it won't be on BBC TV or anything like that, but just in terms of what you say, how you say it, it will be recorded and published accordingly. Brad, shall I say a few words? Just to...
Yeah, hi, I'm Brad. I'm the chairman for what was Cuckfield Rural and South 74 Parish. This is all in our parish, but we're working with Nigel. So this is a listening exercise. We're not the decision-making power, as Nigel said. The idea of this forum is that everybody gets to ask the questions they want. It'll be divided up from the different speakers, and there'll be a limitless amount of Q&A at the end of the meeting, so people can ask their questions and directly get a response from everyone they want. So we hope you find it useful. It's a listening exercise, a bit like a question time. Everybody's entitled to their question, and obviously everybody's entitled to hear the answer. So that's how we're going to play.
Okay. So let's get started. Councillor Bradbury, if you could.
Thank you, Nigel, and good evening, everyone. Great to see such a big turnout on what's a rather inclement, miserable November evening. As Nigel says, my name is Pete Bradbury, and I'm the County Councillor for Cuckfield. As some of you know, I've been for some years. I think everyone understands that planning is a legal process, and at the moment there is no planning application has been submitted. The proposers have asked the County Council for some informal advice in two ways. First through a scoping exercise and then through what's called a pre-application, which is a request for more information and exchange of ideas. And that's the point we're at the moment. There is no planning application submitted as yet. And therefore, as I said, because planning is a legal process, I do need to measure my words quite carefully as to what I say this evening. I would say, however, that we certainly take this very seriously, and I did invite the officer who's dealing with this application, a lady called Jane Mosley, to come, and she and I visited the golf course on Friday and had a good look at what was proposed. I'm just saying that so you understand the County Council takes it very seriously, and this is not just someone sitting in an office in Chichester not knowing the facts on the ground. So she has been, and she and I have looked and discussed. So an agent has come to West Sussex County Council planners asking for initial advice and views regarding a proposal to import some 550,000 tonnes of inert waste over a 12-month period to, in inverted commas, re-engineer the golf course and driving range at Cuckfield Golf Centre. A planning application has not yet been submitted and full details are not yet available, so I'm not yet able to take a firm final view on what is proposed. I hope everyone understands that. However, I understand that for such a project to be acceptable and to meet government policy, the operator will need to show that it is a genuine scheme to improve the golf course rather than solely for financial gain. The project would need to comply with planning policies, including those in the West Sussex Waste Local Plan. They will therefore have to show that they would have clear benefits for the site and the wider area. They would have to show that they would use the minimum amount of waste to deliver those benefits, and that it cannot be delivered outside the area of outstanding natural beauty in which this site is located. This is in addition to demonstrating that the proposal can come forward without harm to the protected landscape, without risk to road safety or affecting highway capacity, and without otherwise causing significant harm to people or the environment. National policy also requires that large-scale waste development such as this can only come forward in an AONB in, and I quote, exceptional circumstances. It will also be for the applicant to demonstrate that the proposal would be acceptable in terms of its impacts and otherwise acceptable in planning policy terms. And I understand that a full environmental impact assessment would be required with this application. And this application will be dealt with by West Sussex County Council rather than Mid Sussex District Council, because it would be dealt with as a temporary waste development site. An application of this scale would be determined by the planning committee, a full meeting of the planning committee, not a delegated decision by officers. So that's the position as we see it at the County Council. Where's Nigel? Nigel, I don't know if you want me to try and answer any questions that people might have now.
Any immediate questions on the process and where West Sussex?
So if I can just apologise in advance, I have another pressing personal engagement tonight, and I will need to disappear probably before the end of this meeting. But I'll be interested to hear what people have got to say in the meantime.
This one's good. Just one point in terms of picking up on something which you just said, in terms of the proposal. My understanding is that it's not going to be over a 12-month period. What has been submitted by the applicant to West Sussex County Council states that the works will go on between April and October of 2 consecutive years. So the minimum period for this proposal is 19 months, with the potential to extend further than that. I understand that this was discussed at the golf club last week, and the indication there was given that the extent of the period could be anywhere between 2 and 3 years.
Okay, thank you, that's very helpful.
Any other questions for Councillor Bradley? Goes to the back.
Can I just ask whether the council will receive any infrastructure contribution as a part of this arrangement?
Not that I'm aware, no.
So there's no section 106 or whatever you normally get in the context of housing development?
No.
Right, thank you.
Well, 106 is a legal planning agreement, so there will definitely be a 106 agreement. I don't anticipate that there's any income for the county council, although again that would be part of the planning application, but I wouldn't have thought so.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is there anywhere we can access what inert actually means, what the proportion, what actually that waste will contain?
Okay, I'm not an expert on this, but one of these days I'll find something I am an expert on, but I'm certainly not an expert on this. What I would suggest that you, and if anyone wants to write to me, they can email me. My email address is pete.bradbury@westsussex.gov.uk. If you've got any technical questions of that nature, please do send them to me, and I will get you a formal answer from an officer who understands.
We do have a professional here that will be answering those.
So I think so that's going to come. One more question back, and I'll come down here.
My question is also about inert waste, because I understand that inert waste means 51% inert waste and 49% active waste, the sort of stuff that comes off drilling sites, like the handy one up at Lower Stumble, which contains radioactive material and everything that comes up from underground with the most lethal chemicals. And isn't it convenient that the two are so close? And where and when is the information going to be available on this? We don't know who lodged the application, who's the agent, for instance. There's an awful lot we're not being told
So I
yet.
think some of it's going to come forward this evening.
I'm glad to hear it, I'm sure we all are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think if I may, it would be helpful to listen to what the applicants have got to say tonight. And then if you have got, as I say, if you've got questions of a technical nature like that, please do forward them to me. If you can't remember my email address, if you just go onto the County Council email or website, and there's a section that says find your councillor, and you'll find me there, and you can send me an email from there. I will pass on and get answers to any questions that people have like that.
Yes, having read the proposal from what was sent by the council, 500,000 tonnes, which would require 130 lorries a day. Two parts to this. Number one, 130 lorries would invariably cause quite a bit of infrastructure damage to the roads, for which who would be responsible. Number two, 130 lorries a day, I did a quick calculation, 8 hours a day, breaks down to one lorry every 3.6 minutes, thundering through the vicinity. I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but I'm a Whiting's Green resident and I'm not comfortable with it. Okay, but I just wanted to highlight that to...
Well done, well done.
Let me just respond to that, if I may, because I think it's an incredibly important point. And if I may say, in all this, it's up to the applicant at every stage to prove that what they're saying they want to do will be acceptable from the perspective of various policies. And you know, as I say, I don't want to comment too much on that at the moment, other than to say there will have to be an environmental impact assessment, there will have to be a transport assessment, and etc. And we will obviously look very, very carefully at what's written in any of those assessments and reports. And as I can't emphasise too much, there is an amount of government guidance and policy relating to putting waste into AOMB. It's up to the applicant to show that they can't do this any other way, and it's not on the onus. The onus is not on the county council to try and defend what we've got. The onus is on the applicant to prove that we absolutely need to accept what they want to do. I hope that makes that clear.
So thank you. Just a moment. This is questions around the West Sussex County Council process. We're going to move on to the speakers in a moment who will cover the technical and the practical side of the application. We've got time for 2 more questions for Peter, and then I'm going to move on to... Oh yes, 50-50. Don't worry, I'll come to you in a second.
Just in relation to the West Sussex County Council, it appears from the plans that I've seen today that there's going to be another entrance onto the golf course some 40 metres from an existing entrance that is already a busy entrance both in and out. The golf course have said that they're not going to actually reduce the number of people going in and out, and certainly our customer base and that of Cuckfield Garden Machinery's customer base will also not diminish. At the moment there are problems because it's a 50-mile-an-hour road of which people do not keep to the speed limit, and already there's problems with some signage on the roads that make it difficult to see in both directions. I hope the West Sussex County Council take into consideration the close proximity of the 2 entrances, particularly when we're hearing that lorry movements are going to be every 3.6 minutes.
And there are badges there as well.
Yeah, well, as I said, we will certainly be scrutinising very robustly the proposals as and when they're put forward. And I agree with you, you know, I can't say that. It's up to the applicants to prove that this is acceptable from a variety of different perspectives. And they have to satisfy all those perspectives, not just some of them.
Okay, one more question.
Thank you for giving us a chance to hear all of this. I've got a question with regards to the EIA. Will it be the company that's proposing to do the landfill conducting this work, or will it be West Sussex conducting the assessments?
So the environmental impact assessment will have to be commissioned and paid for by the applicant. It's a significant investment on their part because they're not cheap to do, they're expensive and time consuming to do. It will have to be done by a suitably qualified person, and it will have to satisfy the county council that it's fit for purpose.
Could I just follow on from that? If the company is paying, or somebody is paying to have a survey done, how do we, sorry? If someone is paying for a survey to be done, surely the result of that survey is going to tell them what they want to hear. It's not going to be in our benefit.
Well, as I said, the survey will have to be done by a suitably qualified impartial person. It has to be paid for by the applicant, it has to be performed by a suitably qualified impartial person, and it will be scrutinised, I can promise you, it will be scrutinised robustly, and if it's not fit for purpose, the county council will not accept it. So it will not be a favoured environmental impact assessment based on the fact that the applicant is paying for it, if that's your concern.
Okay, so let's bring that to close.
One further point before Peter goes, that in the 70s there was a similar scheme to fill that valley up with waste, and it was thrown out in the 70s with a fault line that runs from Slough Green to Lindfield. There's a Lindfield fault line, which I had sent you details of. Yes. So I hope the county council had full knowledge of this and we looked up all the old records and what happened at that time.
We have, thank you for that. Yes, it was very helpful to receive that. We have got that information, and that will obviously need to be addressed by the applicant when they do their environmental impact assessment.
Okay, so we're going to move on to, so let me quickly introduce our speakers for this evening. So, no particular order, Robert Dickman, we'll get to in a moment, Matt Warwick from England Golf, Paul Taylor, where's Paul, who's the planning agent, Bruce Weller, who's course design, landscape and proposals, Ian Brazier, where's Ian? Hi Ian, traffic and hydrological issues, and then Ingrid and James on construction projects, okay, London Box Supplies. So we're going to move on to Robert. Robert, I'd like to hand over to you.
Right,
And we're going to, this is, we've gone through a lot of people, a lot of things to say, so Robert's going to take about 10 minutes to introduce the plans as the owner. We'll take questions after that. I've got to recognise we've got people in the other room as well, so I'll be taking questions from the other room. Just to repeat that point, if you want more space, there's lots next door, and you will be able to participate as well. Robert.
Thank you. Can you hear me, everyone? Well, thank you for allowing us to share the Centre's new project. We hope you will see what a special project we want to undertake for the community. Cuckfield Golf Centre is a special place. We want to make it an exceptional one. When I first saw Cuckfield over 16 years ago, my vision was to create the best 9-hole facility I could for the local community, where golf is fun and accessible for everybody. This goal has never changed. I'm a golf professional who was lucky enough to be introduced to the game over 40 years ago. My passion for the sport has never waned. Over the last 16 years, I've introduced families and individuals to this great sport at Cuckfield. It has been fulfilling to develop the club and the course to introduce many thousands of local families. I've coached with all our staff and developed the centre around the community. The centre is attractive for so many people, for so many different reasons. The layout of the open plan reception has been unique in creating the right atmosphere we always wanted at the start. The idea of the open plan reception was hatched from a golf course which I visited in America, lucky enough. It was a local course community. It had a local sports bar selling burgers and coffee, a retail shop, and it was focused on families. It's exactly what we've tried to do. Having been involved in 3 private members clubs existing from this, where the atmosphere, I wanted to create a different atmosphere, where customers will feel welcome, with limited dress code, etc., and traditional traditions that we know are associated with the game. I know the members feel it's a real social club, where they just meet for coffee, meet friends, play board games, enjoy evening events, arrange trips to Portugal and away, and also will enjoy many Christmas dinners that we'll be holding at the club. At the heart of it is a place where you can learn and experience golf at a low-cost way, remaining open to all. Over the last 16 years, I think we have achieved so much there. We have done this through a fantastic member support that's come and enjoy the club at many social events. We have great staff committed to the customer experience and maintaining and enhanced a friendly atmosphere, which we are known for. We now employ 17 local people, 17 people for full-time and part-time weekend staff. We're proud of this, and we support all the local economic with the suppliers and the meats and the vegetables that we buy from all our suppliers. We're always developing the course and practice facilities and the best possible standards and limitations of the business and the land construction. All the hard work we have put in the last 16 years is now being challenged by the modern golfing world. This is a time of a very discerning customer with limited leisure time. It's a customer who lacks the commitment to stick to one pastime. A customer wanting the best experience they are given. Customers who are happy to travel to explore new experiences and golf courses. Customer who needs a quick fix of golf and not the 5 or 6 hour rounds that puts people off. Customers now who book their golf online in the evenings on downtime using internet, using third-party companies that take a large percentage of my group fee. The changes that we propose will retain our vision and provide golf and fun, but can compete in a modern world. The layout of the new Par 3 course will be an enormous opportunity for a pathway for beginners and families where people can just pitch up with a club and a putter and go out and have fun. The course will have less arduous hills. It doesn't mean we're going to flatten them, it just means we're going to actually use the undulations. We're only going to be walking up 2 holes rather than 4, which makes a difference if you're going around twice. There will be a more challenging layout. There will be a lot more appealing second shots and certainly less important on carry distance, so we can have all the abilities to play golf there. There'll be better drainage, giving opportunity to play golf all year round and use buggies, which some of our members can't actually complete golf without. This project needs to succeed in order for the golf club to remain financially viable in the modern world and continue to be an important part of the community. Cuckfield Golf Centre doesn't live in a different world, in a different bubble that's not affected by the lack of people playing the game, because the facilities at other clubs aren't ticking the boxes of the modern golfer. It's all obvious that there's local courses that are either reducing their golf facilities or closing, and we don't want Cuckfield to be one of those. These improved facilities moving forward can ensure we keep it green, keep it a golf club, and keep it green forever. Let's make it happen. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm going to hand you over to the man.
I'll take questions in a second.
Very different in what they were offering. Very much focused on getting families involved, providing an environment that was extremely relaxed. It didn't have sorry, didn't have any of the traditions and unfortunately negative perceptions that can come with golf. I was extremely enthused walking into that clubhouse first of all. I could see it was being used in a very different way and also being used as a local community facility as well, which is very important. I was extremely pleased that Rob chose to drive through our national accreditation kite mark, if you like, for a golf facility. It's called Golf Mark. It takes a lot of work. It's not easy to do, but Rob was very, very keen on making sure that Cuckfield was recognised in that way from a governing body. And Golf Mark, if you want to go and look at it, it really does highlight that a facility has aspirations around increasing participation, maintaining people in the game for as long as possible, and generally providing the best possible customer experience. However, as Rob has highlighted, time moves on and things change within the sport, and some of the challenges I've got with golf clubs now are around declining participation, changes of leisure habits of people, massive impact on leisure time. And when it comes to simple things as in selling golf club membership and trying to encourage people into membership and commitment to the game, when you've got challenges like how the course is laid out, whether it's playable all year round, if you're trying to sell something that's a 12-month product but isn't necessarily that's what's available, that's clearly a challenge. When it comes to the revenue from green fees, if there's impacts around the weather, they're hard to overcome. What's always been clear with my dealings with Rob is that he really does believe in increasing participation and maintaining people playing this sport. And from a governing body point of view, that's really important. And perhaps one of the most pleasing things from my point of view is a real strong commitment to women's participation within the sport. One of the things that we've seen, sadly, from many golf clubs is such a male dominance. When I've visited Cuckfield, every occasion there has been just such an obvious neutrality in terms of who they're trying to appeal to, and then when you look around the clubhouse and who's using the facility, there are women in far greater numbers there than there are in other places, and I think that really reflects on what Rob is trying to achieve. And as a governing body, we really do want facilities, obviously, being fit for purpose. And what I've seen from the proposals, Rob is trying to make sure Cuckfield stays that way.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. Right, in the spirit that we've got as many people in the other hall as we had in this hall now, so clearly a popular evening. So, Marie, are you with us? We're going to do the Eurovision thing now. Yeah, here we go, Marie. Would you like to ask a question? So these are questions for the owner and...
We've got a question here.
How much is the owner likely to make from taking on 500 million tonnes of inert waste?
The golf course itself is an enormous investment. That will be done with no payment, no fee for me at all. As in, I don't have to pay for it to be done. And any small cost that I get will just be there to keep the staff occupied and employed, so I don't have to make them redundant after 2 years.
And the going rate apparently is £6 a cubic metre.
Yeah, that's right. You need to.
Yeah. Okay. So we can't get into a debate. I'm going to ask Robert to answer a question, and then we'll try and get through. Just 1 second. I'm going to take one more question, Marie. Have you got one next door? Who wants to be first in here? Okay, I'll come to you in a second.
Nigel, can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Have surveys been done of who would use the reconfigured green? So the existing members, what are they going to do whilst the development takes place, if it takes place? And will they return to the new green? And how can we guarantee that the future of this golf club is viable with the reconfigured green? There's not enough guarantees for me.
Okay. I think that's you, Robert.
Yeah. Obviously, during the disturbance, we quite understand that many golf members will seek their golf elsewhere. Some have already said, well, I'll play as I'm doing and just pay green fees and won't join another club. Others it will, and we do appreciate that. We hope that what we will give them at the end will be really quite special, and that will be enough for them to come back and try it. What we're going to give them is an amazing golf course, which you'll see and Bruce will talk about, but it'll give an offering far beyond what we've got. So we're not just known as a friendly golf centre, which has got a lovely atmosphere, but a golf course that can step up in the modern world for competition. And that's what they'll be offering, especially with Par 3 academy courses for beginners, which could be absolutely ideal.
I was just going to reiterate that, Rob, in terms of from our point of governing body, working with obviously a vast number of golf clubs around the whole country, the proposals that are in place are very much on trend with what we're seeing from other facilities that have happened over the last 2 or 3 years that have really seen that return because of the increased participation, because of things like academy courses providing the ideal environment for beginners to get involved.
Okay. So I'm going to take a question in here, Marie, so if you can get that one ready, just over here.
Afterwards, we've got one here.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, can I just clarify, can you confirm that it was the golf club that originated this proposal, or did you receive a proposal from a third party?
No, the people that are involved in the team have been involved in other courses that I know, and I seek them down to ask them for the opportunity to have a look at what we could do here. So they didn't come to me, I came to them. They're totally skilled, and I've seen their work. It's at the highest standard, and I know I'll be very proud of the finished article.
Okay, question over here.
Hiya. Which courses in Sussex have already been through this process, and what have the results been from an environmental perspective and overall kind of sort of impact to the community?
Well, I know Horsham Golf and Fitness.
Yeah, I mean the main one. Sorry, the main one is Horsham Golf and Fitness, and actually we've got the person. Sorry, I'm probably not speaking on behalf of it, but Ingrid was involved in that project, so perhaps when Ingrid is able to speak, then probably the best place to address that. In terms of other golf clubs that I was referring to, is that's kind of reconfiguring of facilities, not necessarily through infill, that have been done to meet the current demands of the golfing world.
That also had a membership. A lot of them came over to us and played. I hoped I'd grab a few of the members, but unfortunately, as the finished article at Horsham is fantastic, and they're just undergoing now a £3.5 million club house to back it up. Not that one has that.
Okay, thank you, Robert. So, Marie, have you got some more questions?
Yes, we have one here.
An area that outstanding natural beauty.
Sorry, Marie, over to you.
Yes, in terms of the traffic, will you be able to guarantee that the lorries trundling through every 3.6 minutes won't be doing so through the Pretty Village Centre?
Probably not a push.
That's his. Yeah, we'll be coming on to that topic. Are there any more questions with you? I will come back.
Yes, there's one more.
Yeah, please do. They can see you, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Is there an implication that if this doesn't go ahead, the course will close and the land won't be green going forward?
No, obviously, as I said, it needs to be done from a financial viable situation. I'm in no different than the other golf course that needs to change and move into the modern times. So let's make sure I own it. I want to keep it green. I'm a golf professional and I want to keep it that way. So let's make sure I own it.
Okay, Marie, I'm going to take a question here now, if I may.
Thank you. Can you, your best estimate, how many members, assuming that they say have faith in your process, how many members do you anticipate playing at the new reconfigured golf course in 2-3 years' time?
I'm hoping
the number of members
well
that we have to suffer 260, about how many, 130 tipper loads a day.
Yeah. I'm hoping well over half or more.
How many people?
Well, we've got 260 members of
So
various
260 members at best, if it was hot, it was doubled, which would be on a good day. So 500 members.
Could easily take that.
Right, 500 members, therefore, I'm going to have to listen to 260 trucks a day for these 500 members to have.
Yeah, but that's just members, that's not all the public that we see.
Give me any statistic you like. I want to get some idea of the usage of this new, brilliant, reconfigured golf course in 2 years, 3 years' time. I mean, how much inconvenience are we putting up with, assuming it all goes ahead, for how many golfers and players?
It's difficult to put a number on that, isn't it? But the main thing is that we don't just, we cater for the members who love the facility, and that will continue, and we also want to attract more public and children and keep coaching. So I can't say we're going to see another 300 people playing.
But it's not a lot, is it?
Oh, it will be, yeah.
Not in my terms.
So can I just make a point? On
it means a lot to golf.
Just on the traffic in the HGV, we do have a specific point on the agenda, so perhaps hold the HGV and traffic points when we get to that. We've got time for 2 more questions. I'm going to take one more in here. I think the lady there was... No, you've got... Sorry, I've got to be fair. Gentleman. Then Marie, if you can get one more question ready. But we'll have time for questions at the end. This is just...
Robert, you talked all about golf, and I think a lot of us already know that. But is the reason for all this to improve the golf course, or just to make money from landfill?
I'm hoping you'll say it's improving the golf course facility and making it continue like a golf course, because, as I say, who knows if things continue that I won't want to.
But with a couple of years disruption and the members dwindling away to nothing, will you have a membership at the end of it? Will there be a golf club at the end of it?
Yeah, I mean, if only going by how Horsham operated, a lot obviously went away, some didn't, and a lot came back, and absolutely, we expect a lot.
So the reason is not just to make money from landfill?
No, it's to stay hard. And if it's not being, we're creating an unbelievable golf course. It's not dumping waste and leaving it.
Okay, it's a very expensive project. We'll hear more about that in a second. Yeah. Marie, one more question from you, and we're going to move on.
I would like to know whether the management of the golf course has any knowledge of a previous application which was unsuccessful. That was simply for really a waste disposal site on that land, and various people spoke against it regarding hydrology and various services and environmental upsets, the disturbance to our lovely view, and it was thrown out. I don't remember the date, I think it was in the 1980s.
Is there a question or just
Obviously the intention there wasn't to build a golf course, so I can see that not going through. But it's not to do that, so we're creating a golf course. So
okay. Thank you, Robert. I know there's lots more questions. We do have questions at the end. This is just questions in between as we go through each topic. So, Paul, would you like to come and join us? Robert, can you just give that microphone to Paul so he doesn't just click on your helmet. Okay, everyone. Can you hear me?
We did manage to fix that. Yes, I think that's picking me up now. I just wanted to explain the planning proposals that we have for Cuckfield Golf Club. They do intend to apply for permission to re-engineer their current golf course, as you've been hearing, in the driving range. They propose to use imported, suitable, inert, non-waste fill material to create the proposed course profile. I'll just explain, reacting to a question that was raised earlier on. The term inert means that the material will not biodegrade. So it's not made up of a proportion of material that will biodegrade, with the majority being non-biodegradable. It's all non-biodegradable, and it has to be that in order to be stable for creating the golf course profile that we want, without leading ultimately to differential settlement, which would ruin our profile entirely and the look of the course. All topsoil would be stripped progressively and stored for respreading, and some subsoils would be excavated and redeposited elsewhere on the course. This is a non-landfill proposal. Suitable inert subsoils would be imported to the site under the terms of the definition of waste, construction industry code of practice, also known as the Clare Code of Practice. In this process, donor site materials would be assessed on the basis of their chemical and physical suitability for use before they were transferred to Cuckfield Golf Course. The donor site would be analysed very, very carefully to make sure that all of the material that was earmarked was suitable, and once that was appropriately concluded, then the material could be transferred. So in other words, no waste material would actually be accepted at Cuckfield. Now the key planning issues of this particular project are, firstly, the effect of construction traffic on the local population. And we've been hearing a lot about that, and we'll hear a lot more about it, and hopefully we'll be able to explain more in more detail in my colleague's subsequent presentation. The other key planning issue is the landscape, visual and other effects on the high-wheeled area of outstanding natural beauty and other designated areas in addition to that, prior to, during and after construction. Thirdly, the applicant wishes to engage with local people, and this is a key planning requirement of planning applications of this magnitude these days, and it's our wish to advise all of you here of the actual facts behind the application and how we wish to proceed. Fourthly, we will ensure that the protection of habitats and of notable protected species is maintained by virtue of an environmental impact assessment, which would thoroughly and rigorously assess by suitably qualified independent professional people the issues surrounding those particular topics. There are a lot more topics as well that we would have to include in this environmental impact assessment, which we would actually present along with our planning application to West Sussex County Council. Just give you an overview of the planning application process. As the Councillor said earlier on, a request for a scoping opinion was submitted to West Sussex County Council, actually on the 24th of May this year. A scoping opinion was delivered by them on the 7th of September this year. A fully developed environmental statement detailing responses to all the requirements of the scope that were listed in the scoping opinion and a planning application supporting statement will be submitted as soon as possible to West Sussex County Council. Planning officer's report and recommendations would be compiled following consultation with parish and district councils, together with the comments from members of the public and responses from other statutory consultees, one of whom would be the Environment Agency, for example, and another would be the Highways Authority. They're both statutory consultees. The report would be passed to West Sussex County Council Planning Committee for a decision. As the council has said, it wouldn't be possible to determine this application by delegated powers. So why does the club need this development? It needs it to improve the appeal of the course and to address the general decline in membership that you've heard about earlier. It's needed to ensure the long-term survival of the club as a leisure resource. It's needed to improve accessibility for less able golfers and to improve safety standards. We've heard from Robert that actually less able golfers are not able to use golf buggies for a significant proportion of the year due to wet conditions. And it's needed to preclude the possible future emergence of unsatisfactory alternative schemes, not from the Cuckfield Golf Course, but from others possibly. So the principles of the proposal are to re-engineer in a series of 5 phases over about 2 years. Subsurface and surface water drainage systems would be installed to prevent waterlogging. A new temporary access would be created. As the previous questioner said, some 40 metres to the east, I think it is. I get my background the right way in my head. And this would be dedicated to the importation of fill material. And it would keep the 2 separate from the existing entrance that would still be used by visitors to the golf centre and to the businesses at the entrance. The clubhouse and social facilities would remain open, but the golf course itself, as we've heard, would have to close during construction on safety grounds. In addition to this, a new practice area, including the golf pod driving range and a short par 3 course, will be created. Essential aims of the proposal are firstly to create a competition standard course with improved practice facilities. Secondly, to maintain the natural beauty of the surrounding landscape, which is Cuckfield's jewel in the crown. Thirdly, to minimise the impact of the proposal during construction. And fourthly, to improve the viability of the club and therefore ensure its longevity. And we propose to do that by increasing its attractiveness to new members and to retain existing members as much as possible. The next presentation will be a summary of the course design and landscaping proposals from my colleague Bruce Weber, who is our golf course architect, a summary of the hydrological and traffic issues from Ian Brazier, and a description of the construction project itself from Ingrid Eichler at Contour Golf and James Jeffries of London Rock. So if I can hand myself back to the chairman.
Thank you, Paul. So we're opening for questions on Paul's specific part. We'll take questions on the other parts when we come on to it in a second. Marie, if you can get a couple of questions ready, I'll take them here first. want to go gentleman first? In the red, David. Then I'll go to Susan.
In the red, yes, I'm sorry about that. Yes, I'd like to start by saying I have a lot of sympathy with the golf club. I'd rather see somebody trying to do something to prolong it. And I'm very conscious of the fact that in Cuckfield here we have a rather bad track record of saying no to every new development, and then by the time it finally goes through, something much worse has happened. However, the question is going to be, what price do we have to pay for this as a community in the intervening period? And you have stressed, and I believe Peter did as well, independent surveys on the various things in the West Sussex scoping thing. Well, fine. How do we guarantee that they are independent? Because I think we've all been fully aware of building schemes around here where detecting environment, which is something I do know about. As an example, the independent report has clearly been anything but. The reporter has obviously been on the side of the developer and has missed salient facts and so on and so forth. And so both here and on the traffic plan and so on, I think these are the two, the environmental assessment I mean, and the traffic coming on later. How can we guarantee real independence? For example, for the environmental, why not call in the Sussex Wildlife Trust? They know more than anybody else, and they're quite definitely independent.
Thank you, David. Paul, would you like to quickly answer?
Yes, I think that, for using your example, bodies like Sussex Wildlife Trust would be used in order to develop the mitigation measures, which may then be recommended as part of the hydrological assessment or whatever subject topic we were talking about. So there is that. We will listen and we will certainly engage with local expertise. We would be very grateful for it. But I must say, the professional integrity of the individuals producing the report would also be a guarantee of their impartiality. They are, without exception, members of appropriate professional bodies, from which they would be expunged if they were found to be biasing an opinion or a decision. And so I'm very confident that, that the advice that they give or the assessment that they make will be impartial.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Emma? If I could you keep the questions concise so we can get...
We've got one here.
1 second, Marie.
Thank you for that. It's been really interesting learning what's in it for the golf club. I think we're going to talk about what's in it for the village, but particularly for me, we've had lots of incidents recently. We're now setting up a speed watch in the village. I'm really concerned about safety with 100 trucks going through. We're already struggling with the traffic going through the village anyway. We've had children clipped, knocked down. Yeah. What things have you put in place to guarantee the safety of our children? That to me is absolutely paramount.
We'll come on to that next week. Paul, do you want to answer that, Paul? You want to answer that, or should we defer to the next?
No, I think I'm not an expert on highways issues. My colleague is, and so I think it's best that he answers your question.
Okay, Marie. Let's say Marie, two from you.
Hi. You talked about the actual landfill and what it was going to be, and you mentioned inert and non-biodegradable. You didn't explain or elaborate on that. Can you actually specify what materials are going to be used, please?
We are going to import strictly inert material. In other words, material that is not contaminated and that does not biodegrade. That has example, sorry, it's subsoil. It's the clay or the material that exists beneath the topsoil, and it is, as a result, it's largely inert. Unlike topsoil, which is far from inert because it has roots, it has lots of organic matter in it. Subsoils do not. The further down you go, the less that disappears. It usually cuts off after about 300 millimetres or so, and the ground becomes inert. In other words, it's not able to degrade.
Okay, I think we've got more technical conversation than that as well, haven't we? Marie, one more question?
Yes, hold on.
Going on.
Given the dwindling golf participation that seems to be across the board, I cannot believe that such a plan is even being considered in an area of outstanding natural beauty without a feasibility study of future golf membership, which suggests to me this is actually about financial gain. Because what happens at the end of it, with a beautiful new golf course, all the villagers have suffered through this. If you still can't get the membership, what then? Is it going to be a housing estate?
Our intention is to avoid such development by virtue of having a championship, certainly a competition standard golf course, which will stand the test of time, which will not lend itself.
Okay, we can. So, Paul, I'm not going to take some more questions in here. Yes, it just. 1 second.
I don't know if you're,
everyone, please.
I don't know if you're the right person to answer this, but I'd like someone to answer this. The question of financial gain has been touched on 2 or 3 times. Robert has said he'll make no financial gain out of it. Landfill is very expensive to find, and it costs a lot of money to the person who wants to put inert material in it. With these thousands of tons going in, that is quite a lot of money that has to pass hands for someone to get that site and have it filled. My question is short and simple. Who is gaining and how much is the cash that's changing hands?
The answer is that if this was a landfill site that we're proposing, you're quite right. Large sums of money would be changing hands, and someone would be taking those receipts by virtue of offering the landfill void space or whatever it might be called. In this case, it's rather different. We are not intending, and certainly will not, be importing waste material. That would require the Environment Agency to consider granting an environmental permit for a landfill. And this is not something that we feel is necessary because, indeed, by virtue of using the mechanism of the construction industry code of practice, the CLARE code of practice as it's sometimes called, we shall be assessing the donor sites from which we intend to take the fill material in order to create the profiles. There is a...
You're not answering the question. Answer the question. It's costly to find a site for.
£6 a cubic metre.
Material or biodegradable material.
How much?
2.2 million quid.
Who is gaining and how much are they gaining?
2.2 million quid.
Okay, if I could ask you not to heckle.
It's very, very topical. You've said that you've gone to great lengths saying that you're... Sorry,
yeah, I'm actually going to defer your question, but just in the spirit of everybody else. Okay, so please don't heckle because it's hard for other people to hear, and I'd like to think Cuckfield can be professional in this conversation this evening. We will get to as many as you can, Gerald. I'll come to you in a second. This young lady here, though.
Could you just answer the previous question?
Well, so we'll have general questions at the end as well. I will come back to them in a second. I don't believe David didn't.
That's breaking the continuity. This lady's got a question relating to what just been said now.
I'll come back to it in a second.
He hasn't answered your question.
Paul, do you have anything else to say to answer perhaps the question more directly?
Who is gaining and by how much is what he asked you.
I would maybe a little bit about what the course is worth.
No, we don't want the waffle. We want to know how much and who's getting it.
No idea. £6.
So you're doing it for nothing? You're letting people dump their waste there for nothing out of generosity?
No, because they're in a building, an enormously expensive golf course it's not just dumping of rubbish into the side of the car park and running away. We're creating an amazing...
So if I may,
confusion. That's a very, very expensive project.
So if I understand, I think where the confusion is the difference between inert waste and landfill. Perhaps in the spirit of concisely asking what the difference is, because you talked about...
Well, the difference cost-wise.
I think
the cost.
Whoever tips the landfill into this golf course, which is recreational ground, does not have to pay landfill tax. So if it's Red Row or anyone else, they do not have to pay landfill tax. So the developers gaining from it, you are gaining from it, because no one tips land into a golf course or anyone else without being paid, and brown lorries or whoever else gains money.
Okay.
So 3 people benefit from this, to the detriment of the whole village.
So this is for Paul to answer, not... Okay, Paul.
I'm sorry, they can't hear next door.
I know.
They can't hear next door.
Okay. Please do not heckle and call out. Wait for the microphone, otherwise it won't be fair on everybody. Paul, I'm just going to come back one last time on that question, and then we'll move on.
So if you remind me, Nigel, the difference between subsoil and inert material.
So the question was, who gains? Great. And by how much? And then I think there's underlying confusion over what inert is over general landfill.
Well, who gains? And maybe it's best to ask what gains. And my answer would be the golf course gains. The golf course is being created, if you like.
I think the direct question is financial gains. We've heard Robert's view, but
there's a financial gain that is needed in order to construct the golf course. As Robert was saying, and I'm not sure whether you heard him because he didn't have a microphone, but it is a fabulously expensive exercise, and it has to be paid for if we're going to move ahead with a perpetual.
Okay, so there's 90 seconds to answer that question. You can determine how you want. Sorry, there are lots of questions. I can't get to everyone, but this lady here.
Coming back to the question on inert versus non-inert, under Quadrilla's drilling licence, they have to drill another well before 2021, which means there will be a lot of inert chippings, the drilling chippings that will have to be disposed somewhere. I'm assuming that would, as it's not in the top layer, it's the lower layer, that's part of your inert definition?
Its position in the soil horizon isn't the only criterion that we would use. We would need to know and fully understand the chemical and the physical nature of that material. If that drilled material was completely inert, in other words, if it had no contamination from, say for instance, heavy metals or no organic material present, then it may well be suitable. May well.
Okay, right. Yeah. So I'm not going to get to everyone. And putting your hand up high doesn't make a difference.
You talked last about inert materials and how you're going to carefully select what goes in, and you'll be very, 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 very discerning about what goes into this landfill. Is it going to be a security manned 24-hour site, so that obviously under cover of darkness no one can just come along, dump their asbestos or whatever else onto this site? You've got 2 entrances to cover. You're proposing putting a second one up. How are you going to secure this and make sure that people up this landfill is completely inert, it's completely regulated? Because at the moment I can't see how you're going to make that happen.
That would be a prerequisite, quite right.
How are you going to make that happen? You talked about non-biodegradable materials, okay? How do we know that someone's not going to come in with their brown lorry under cover of darkness, dump a truckload of asbestos, anything else?
We quite simply form a barrier at the gate.
And that's going to be manned 24 hours a day, is it?
It's able to be locked securely after hours, and if it needed a security guard to be present, then I dare say one would be provided. But in my experience, an 8-wheel lorry is not a very agile machine, and it's quite possible.
It was a serious question. Thank you.
It's quite possible to preclude the entry of these sorts of vehicles. It happens in sites all over the country. They are adequately protected by security gates.
Right.
Over two more, then we're going to move on to the next speaker.
We've got two
more, then I'll move on to the next speaker. We have other questions.
My question is, I'm struggling to visualise 500,000 tonnes of soil. I do know that it's a very undulating site. I can't see any pictures of how level it's going to be by the time you put 500,000 tonnes in. How flat is it going to be when you finish levelling this land?
Yes, if I can just actually bring Bruce's presentation on that subject. Bruce is our golf course designer. He has the drawings and understands the issues for...
let's come on to that in a second.
I would be grateful.
Yeah, okay. Maybe one more question, and then we'll move on to Bruce.
You mentioned, well, the only example you gave of putting material in was clay, which won't have any drainage, one iota. So I'm assuming there's lots of other products you're going to be putting in it. Can you put man-made products such as concrete into this?
Yes, in essence, concrete is set or gone off and crushed. That can be used, and indeed we will be using concrete and brick rubble to create roads within the site, for one thing, and also we would be using waste sand, as long as it was not actually a waste material, and that we could catalogue it or describe it under the terms of the construction industry code of practice. But certainly sand that had passed those strict tests, it would be useful to use in our drainage material. But you're quite right. Clay soils do not drain. We would be installing drainage throughout the top surface of the reprofiled facility, which would conduct drainage away. And again, I'm going to defer to Ian to deal with that subject. He's our hydrologist.
Okay. So in the spirit of time, because I'm going to move on to the next speaker. There's still lots of time for questions. We've got till lots of time yet, and there will be questions for all the speakers at the end as well. So don't just cram all into the next few minutes.
Do you want to just say a few more? I've got to disappear now. So it's been interesting to listen to all that so far. I thought it would be useful just to read a couple of points from the letter that the County Council has sent to the applicant in response to their pre-application. And forgive me for being boring about policy W8, but it's very significant in this context. Policy W8 is the one in which covers recovery operations involving the deposit of inert waste to land, which clearly is what this is. The County Council officer says, under Policy W8, which considers recovery operations involving the deposit of inert waste material to land, various tests are set out to guide the acceptability of the proposal. At this early stage, and without prejudice to the planning process, it's difficult to see how this proposal would meet those tests. The works proposed are substantial, are likely to result in significant impacts during the construction process, and would change the landform in a nationally protected landscape. It goes on to say, bear with me a second, I'm just finding. Okay. So it then goes on to say conclusion, and this is a long letter. If anyone wants a copy of this letter, by the way, they can write to me and I will forward them a copy of it.
They're all on the parish websites now, so they'll come in later.
Okay. But the conclusion, the officer says, is this, and bear in mind I just referred to policy W8. The development, if unable to meet the tests set out in policy W8, will constitute a major waste disposal operation within the high-wheeled AONB. The development will be subject to environment impact assessment, and although it aims to result in a beneficial after-use in terms of recreation, there is also the potential to generate significant environmental and amenity effects that will be detrimental to the designation and local community. Based on the information provided, unless exceptional circumstances could be demonstrated to justify the development taking place within the AONB, and that the tests set out in policy W8 are met, it's unlikely the proposed development would be considered acceptable in principle, and any subsequent planning application would therefore risk refusal. I think it's quite important to say that, because that's the position of the County Council as it stands at the moment, and I hope that's helpful to people to hear that. And as I say, if anyone wants a copy of this letter, they are welcome to have it. I apologise, I've got a long-standing family commitment for which I'm already going to get shocked because I'm already 1/4 late, so I do apologise for leaving, but I will be reading all the information that comes forward in due course. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Right, I'm just going to bring Bruce on now. I said I'll have time for more questions. I don't think this is the only opportunity to ask questions. Just get Bruce connected up. Just on that point on documentation, there are all the documentation we referred to tonight is on, certainly on the Cuckfield Parish website. Brandon's on Anne's website as well? Yeah. Okay, there is water in the other room if anyone would like it. Right, Bruce. So I'll let you do your own introduction. They're all warm up now. So,
yeah. Can you hear me okay? No.
Pretty scared.
Right, good evening everyone. My name is Bruce Weller. I'm a senior member of the European Institute of Golf Course Architects. I'm also a landscape architect, and I've dealt with over the last 20 years about 125 soil import-led schemes on golf courses. At the end of the day, they are just golf courses. I fully appreciate you want to know what it's going to look like. Obviously my brief is to create a golf course that's going to be more approachable by a bigger audience, families, the par 3 course, the better range, the better 9 holes. A golf course that doesn't do anything, that sits still, literally goes backwards at the moment. There's equipment changes, there's a difference, there's a lot more competition in terms of children and families vying for amenity, leisure time. And so a golf course, you've heard about it, golf courses are struggling, and if they haven't got particulars at the USP, they will struggle and not attract enough members or green fees, and basically tread water. So that what we found over the last 5 years, the facilities that have a broader scope of design, i.e. the par 3, a better teaching academy, a better 9 holes, they're the ones. Sometimes they have adventure golf, some of you might have heard of, or foot golf. They're all trying to push a broader audience. Now, whether that means that a small child going to play a putting course or snag golf, which is another sort of form of golf with Velcro that can be used on a par 3. It's all ways of getting younger people or younger families or just anybody into golf, finding it interesting. So basically the design meant that the design brief meant that we had to fit in a par 3 course, and basically the other brief was to make a much better golf course and reduce some of the hard walks on the site. We have a mantra, if you like, as golf course architects. It's basically safety's first. I'll come on to some of the safety issues, but we also have what's called water on, water off. Now the golf course does suffer from drainage problems, which in safety terms is people slipping on steep slopes. It also, the water situation is getting harder and harder in terms of irrigation and supply of irrigation water. Main supplies will be cut off very quickly in times of drought for golf courses, which is the norm. The golf course has to, with climate change and everything, it has to secure and be sustainable with its own water. So much of our design is geared towards what we call form and function. The design of the course is taking water off the playing surfaces, but also what we call water harvesting, taking it to a lagoon to be reused by the golf club in the summer months. And that takes pressure off the aquifers and the mains in your area, and it's totally self-sufficient. So there's a lot of sustainability being put into this design. The sustainable areas also in terms of creating a sort of better environment for maintenance, because the maintenance areas are quite steep on some of the areas, and that causes issues with trying to look after the grass or safety. There's the part of the redesign of the golf course, we did have to reconfigure it entirely, meaning it went round in a clockwise direction, which basically golfers slice generally. Apologise if you're not a golfer, but it's more safer to have a clockwise rotating golf course. That's the balls aren't going towards the footpath out of the site into somebody else's property, which there is an issue at the moment. So safety is the number one issue we always look at. So then moving back to the actual design and upgrading the course, we recently did an importation scheme at Chadwell Heath called Golf Kingdom. That's won a green award with Havering Council. We imported double the amount of soil on that site, and I would urge you, if you want to see the quality of the golf course that can be achieved, it's just soil at the end of the day. Go and visit that site, look on the website, it's got the green award for sustainability. The soil was reused, and basically it's probably the most popular golf course of that nature in the country now. Admittedly, it has a lot of adventure golf, par 3s, foot golf and a 9-hole, but it shows what can be done with the right upgrading. Moving on to, we've talked about water and water off. The design aesthetics, we're looking to have a revamp of the entire golf course. We will, as a landscape architect, I'm no illusion, we want to know what it's going to look like. We will be required by the application to do what's called an LVIA, which is a landscape visual impact assessment. Now that involves what we call verifiable montages. So we would have to prove, part of the EIA, those montages or design, sketches, or we would probably use a CGI, would be exactly as it will appear when it's built. So there's a lot of process to go through for people to see what we're trying to design. At the end of the day, it's only it's quite a big site, and we don't want to create lots of humps and bumps. It's obviously in the AONB. It's broad folds of land, which we're, if anything, we're just accentuating by reducing some of the walks, but the valley would be more accentuated. Some of the areas that flow up and down would just be still go up and down, but more accentuated. So there'll be just long flows. If we just put mounds as a landscape, put pimples around the golf course, it will just show up as ugly. It's more about long flows, 1 in 4, 1 in 5 slopes. The one thing that gives golf courses away perhaps in an AONB is bunkers. The bunkers will be designed so that you don't get these flashed sort of white features. They will be grass-based bunkers that sit in the landscape, not viewed from miles and miles away. So there will be a lot of attention spent on doing the landscape visual impact assessment. And the CGI, quality of CGIs now, so are verifiable, will give the council and the public a clear view of what it's going to look like. I appreciate at the moment a few cross-sections and the plan doesn't really give you a feel for it, but that will be part of the planning process. As I say, it'll be a longer course, the equipment's changed, every course in the country is trying to get longer because the ball's going further, the ball technology's got better, the club technology. So we would end up with a course that's, as an 18, would be 6,500 yards, and just more normal, because it's quite a short course at the moment. But there's going to be lots of tees and flexibility for families to use and less adept golfers. The actual spec, we talked a bit about construction, but they are expensive facilities to build. Every, what we call a USGA green, which is a sand-based green, is £35,000 to build. Irrigation on an 18-hole golf course, if you're full irrigation, is upwards of 800,000. On a 9-hole, we're probably looking at £200,000 or £300,000 for an irrigation system, and a newly revamped one. Drainage, another £500,000. It's expensive to build a golf course, and we've talked about it. A lot of the courses that I've been involved with, the importation, yes, it does enable some of the build. I'm not saying all of it because they are expensive, but as you all alluded to, there is a revenue to be gained from the importation, and that will be going towards the golf course build. Perhaps I'm sure in the fullness of time when the application goes in, we will be asked to break down where the expenses are going. But that's, I've done a lot of these schemes, and the other, I suppose, as an architect and also wanting a good scheme, you may have heard of some spurious schemes that have happened, and people have either filled and not really finished the golf course on, or done it badly, or overfilled it. There are ways of protecting that from happening. It can be remeasured, it can be done in phases. So there are ways of ensuring it's done to the, if it was approved, the design. So I won't go into the nitty-gritty of every shot and everything, but hopefully that gives you some reassurance that it's going to be a great golf course that appeals to all.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. So if we can keep the questions to the planning and the design, and we're coming on to the two other speakers in a moment. But we are going to take some questions here first. Who's got questions on the plan or the design? And we're going to speak to them spoken as well. Any at the back? This one first for everybody? Right, we'll go to this lady.
Hello, you've done a very hard sell for golf, but what about for walkers? There's footpaths that cross the site at the moment, and we've had no mention about how they're going to be catered for. You might not manage to pick this up, but there probably aren't that many golfers in here tonight.
Well, we haven't actually touched the line of any footpaths. There's no our grading plan, it doesn't show any. Well, it's wrong there because we haven't graded over.
This is what we're reading.
Okay. Point to note.
But yeah, we haven't.
Sorry, we didn't hear what the conversation was about. Walkers. Sorry, walk-based phone. Sorry.
I asked what was going to be happening with the footpaths, because the West Sussex scoping study says that footpaths are going to be impacted. This gentleman has now told me they won't be.
I'm here on behalf of Mid-Sussex Ramblers. I'm just here on behalf of Mid-Sussex Ramblers.
Okay. So footpaths, have you anything to say?
No, we haven't changed the line of them, we haven't graded over them. We have guidelines about safety, the third hole. Anyway, we have incorporated a safer design for the footpaths.
The footpaths aren't safe now. Why
we're making them safer.
They're not unsafe now.
So, we can't get into the debate because it's just not. Hang on 1 second, Gerald. 1 second.
I'm sorry, I really don't understand what you're saying, because looking at the actual plan, which shows the contours, the proposed grading in the back of the scoping request which you submitted to West Sussex County Council, it identifies the footpaths and it identifies the actual new contours which are being applied as a result of the waste being brought in over both of those footpaths.
Okay. Well, I will check that. But we're not changing the line. If I have to go back. If we're changing the slope, it would be a better. We won't make it steeper, put it that way. I just picked up there's one area in the fifth. We just skirt round.
Sorry, can I just also ask a follow-up question? Your business is Weller Designs.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Looking at your website. It identifies Cuckfield Golf Centre as a client. And on the home page, you have 3 business areas. One of those is entitled Funding Schemes. Did you recognise this?
Yes.
And reading from this, it says, Weller Designs Limited has all the experience required to advise on the use of soil importation to raise revenue. It goes on to say, obtaining a permit for bringing in soil for golf course construction is a complex process involving both the planning authority and the Environment Agency. However, once achieved, there is an opportunity to command a royalty for allowing soil hauliers to deposit their soil, i.e. fill or waste, as an approved site. Do you recognise that?
Yes.
Okay. So, in terms of the questions which people were asking earlier on about making money out of landfill, your public information affects that?
It enables the golf course bill.
Okay. And you are proposing to also prepare a landscape and visual impact assessment for any proposal that comes forward?
I could do, but if it requires an independent,
okay.
We would.
All right. Thank you.
That's it, there's any questions here?
No? Okay, I'd say, being fair to people who haven't asked, the gentleman at the back, sorry, he's been patiently waiting.
Hello, thank you. I'd just like to say, first of all, I've used the golf course on a number of occasions, and my family, children have played a lot of golf there and got a lot out of it. But having spoken to 3 people I know who own golf courses, or run them, they've been approached by companies like Mr. Taylor we've heard from, with the suggestion of dumping a lot of waste in order to re-landscape, which is pretty much what Mr. Conway just touched on just now. And just to answer the question that wasn't answered earlier, the going rate is £6 per square metre, per cubic metre, excuse me, which equates to about £2.2 million.
3.3.
3.3. Okay, between 2.2 and 3.3 million pounds, depending on whose figures you use. And an awful lot of money coming into Mr. Dickman's club. Mr. Dickman's the majority shareholder of Cuckfield Golf Centre. My question really is, well, twofold. What's to stop you just deciding to take that revenue and then shut the club and not take on the extra cost of all the remodelling you would have to do and disappear off into the sunset, leaving us with a bit of the AO&B that's been filled with potentially concrete, we've just heard? This would make the area therefore no longer viable to be returned to agricultural use, possibly, which is what would normally happen, and God knows what would happen to the bit of beautiful AO&B that we live next to once it's full of concrete and other, yes, it may be inert, but other material which isn't normal soil. So I'd like to ask Mr. Dickman to answer that question.
You just passed the... Sorry, just give us 1 second.
Okay, thank you. Well, all the thousands and thousands of pounds apparently won't be going to my bank account. Luckily, I'm actually going to also stumping up the thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds in to fight this battle to put it forward. So monies do not go into my bank account. The gentleman and James is fronting it all. He is looking after all the expenses, and it's his problem if it doesn't go through. He's picking up the problems. As I said to you, all the money that will be gained from it is going into London Rock. I am not gaining from that at all. I am getting a fantastic golf course, as I've said here many, many times. That's all I want. I want to be viable. I want to keep my members afterwards. I want to keep my staff, and I want to keep a green golf course. And all I will be getting is a fantastic golf course, which is £1,000, and any monies that will be left will simply enable me to be viably open for maybe 2 years for this disruption of not having a customer base or green fees or memberships. Unfortunately, there's 18 people still want to have their mortgages paid and food on the table. And that's where it is. It is a £4 million, £3 million golf course that's non-viable in this economic climate. No person would put that money into it unless it's created in this way. And that's the way forward.
Okay, thank you, Robert. I'm going to take 2 more questions on here, then I'm going to move on to the next speaker, this gentleman here.
In the exhibition outside, and I'd just like to make this clear for both myself and one other questioner. The implication is that there are mounds of landfill coming in and being dumped. Now, when I asked the question out in the other hall of somebody, the answer was that there would be, on average, a metre of landfill spread over the whole of the area in question. would that be correct, or is that incorrect, please? Sorry, it may be 3 metres, but between 1 and 3 metres. But I just wanted to get clear.
The average is less than a metre, but I fully appreciate.
Well, it's a metre. 36 hectares, 367,000 cubic metres.
It's about
36 hectares.
Can we have the microphone, please? The voting everyone.
Right, yeah, well, we can't get into a debate, so perhaps just answer a question.
That's an average. I mean, averages can be misleading. And I fully appreciate there's areas of the course that are built up. You'll see on the isopacite very clearly some areas half a metre, some areas get up to 5 metres where we're lifting for a large tea complex, but it's all very much battered down. The site goes up and down to 40 metres, so it's all about long batters. If I say 5 metres and then imagine this 5 metre high mound, it's just a gradual raising up for a tea location or a green location.
I'm going to take one more question here, then we'll move on to the next speaker.
Robert, you mentioned that no money would be coming into your bank account. I understand that the costs are all mutual. But the other day, would I be right in thinking the value of your golf course has gone up very considerably?
Probably not, unfortunately. You don't get a lot of golf courses these days. There's not some. It would love you.
Well, why would you?
No, probably not. I mean, there's complexes that are 36 holes with hotels and things like that, and it's owning a golf course as a product it's not really make a lot of difference to it. Because it's going to be a facility for many golfers to enjoy. It doesn't matter if it's worth whatever, it's a better golf facility.
Just while I've got the next speaker again,
hello. Personally, I believe in free enterprise. I should be delighted if you all got rich and that Cuckfield ended up
I would as well.
golf club.
Amazing.
I'd be delighted for you all. So I don't mind if money exchanges hands. But what I fail to understand is why supporting one man's business should inflict 130 site, and the exit from our lane is going to have a lorry every minute and a half, one in each direction every minute and a half. And it's a difficult turn, as I'm sure some of my friends and neighbours will agree.
Yeah. And they're not going to come accurately at 1.5 minute intervals.
Yeah. And they also on their mobile phones half the time as well. Yeah. And I actually had one of my cars written off earlier on this year by one such lorry. It wasn't on that road, but I did.
Right, so I'm going to hand over to Brad now. Brad can do the walking and he's stepping up. Yeah, we'll bring the next speaker.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me? Okay, my name is Ian Brazier from Abington Consulting Engineers. I'm going to talk to you about the hydrological issues and the highways and traffic matters. First of all, I'm going to talk to you about the hydrological matters. The existing site is drained by a stream, and there are 2 existing ponds. And as we've already heard, there's a lot of problems on the site with regards to the course being boggy and not usable throughout the entire year. So our intention is to address that particular amenity problem. Now, we've examined the existing geology on site. There are no superficial deposits, which underneath that is the bedrock. Now, we've got sandstone bedrock and mudstone bedrock. On top of that, there's been some deposits as they reprofiled the original landform to create the golf course as you can see it now. there are a number of different ways of trying to dispose of surface water runoff created by rainfall. Our normal chosen method of disposal is through infiltration into the ground. That's the preference of the Environment Agency and the government guidance. However, we've undertaken some infiltration testing on site and found that that method of surface water disposal doesn't work, i.e. the surface water doesn't penetrate into the ground. So at the moment it's obviously getting away into the stream and the existing ponds. Our baseline condition is to assume that the site has what we regard as greenfield runoff. So the rate of discharge of surface water is the same as what you would find on a green field. Now, the proposal is obviously to import inert non-waste material. We can't be precisely able to say exactly the makeup of that material, other than we know it will be inert. So there'll be some of it which is sand and gravel, which will be highly permeable, and there'll be other elements which will be clay, which is very impermeable. Our baseline for that is that we have to assume the worst case scenario, i.e. it's going to be the most impermeable and create the greatest amount of runoff. And that's how we sort of our starting point for the design of controlling and managing surface water runoff. During construction, the rainwater will discharge onto areas that are going to be worked and deposited material, and the surface water will be channeled towards settlement ponds to allow any silt to settle in the pond before it's discharged into the watercourse, so that we don't get what we call settlement mobilisation in the water courses or muddy water going off-site. We'll be designing some attenuation features, so these are features which hold back water, assuming that we get high rates of discharge, and they will release water into the ponds and into the water courses at a greenfield runoff rate. And we'll be able to do that using flow control devices which limit the discharge rates. At the moment, the intention is to use the two existing ponds, and there'll be what we call a freeboard amount of storage above the existing pond level to allow for storage for water to be held back. We will also have some dry basins performing the same purpose, and they will be generally located around the low points. The proposals will be presented in a flood risk assessment, and that will be agreed with the local flood authority, who are, in this case, Wessex County Council, and they are responsible for ordinary water courses in which we'll be discharging. We'll be complying with the National Planning Policy Framework regarding climate change requirements and flood risk. Now I'm going to move on to highways and traffic. So the intention is to retain the existing access for the existing businesses that currently operate off it, and also the golf course clubhouse, which I understand will continue to be used for social events. There will be no traffic generated by people using the golf course, and obviously we've said that that will be closed down during the construction period. A proposed new access will be formed to the east of the existing access, and that will be used solely for construction vehicles. The location of that access will be agreed with the Highway Authority. Its location is based upon standards set out in guidance set out by the Highways Agency, and it will also be subject to a safety audit by an independent safety auditor. So the new access for construction will need to be constructed prior to any work taking place on site. It will be carried out under a legal agreement with the Highway Authority. The proposal for delivery of material. Now this will be brought in by tipper lorries, and it will access the site via the A23 along Slough Green Lane and Road only. That route will be secured by a routing agreement with the Highway Authority, so there will be no opportunity for vehicles to be deviating from that route. Should we find during the course of construction that we have traffic which is deviating from that route, then we will suspend using that particular supplier indefinitely. Now, I'm not sure whether it's been made clear, but following discussions within our team about the construction period, I've reassessed the traffic generation. Our current thought process is basing the traffic or the construction period over about 2 years as a minimum.
What's the maximum?
3 or 4 years that's going to take.
I'm sure Paul will be able to talk about the duration of that fact that we're working on the basis of 2 years. We would estimate that that would make 67 loads per day. Now, so that's 67 lorries, but each lorry generates 2 trips, one in and one out. So that would generate 134 trips per day, which would be 1 trip every 5 minutes. That's based upon 5.5 working days between 7:30 AM and 6 PM.
Boo! 600 kids on that road on a Saturday morning.
Can I take questions after I finish my presentation? The intention at the moment is to work 5.5 days per week, with weekdays being 7:30 AM to 6 PM. Saturdays between 7:30 and 1 PM. The impact of that will be assessed by comparing the existing traffic.
Excuse me, we couldn't hear them because there's so many people talking over you. Yeah. Can we let the gentleman finish before we ask questions? Yeah. I don't know where our chairman has gone.
Yeah, I'm here.
But can you actually reiterate, because I didn't hear, what's going to happen on a Saturday morning?
Current proposal 7:30 AM to 1 PM.
Oh, right.
Now the impact of the traffic will be compared with the existing traffic. A survey will be carried out using an independent survey company. Usually they're national-based companies, so we have no influence over them. They'll just survey the traffic, and we present it with the data, which will also be shared with the Highway Authority. There'll be a comparison with the existing traffic, and the intention obviously be to make sure that we don't overload the highway network by as a percentage creating too much traffic. There'll be a wheel wash facility provided on site, and road sweeping will be carried out as necessary. Once the works are complete, the access will be closed off, and any remedial works to the highway will be carried out.
Okay, right, questions?
Thank you for giving us that overview of transport. I don't think it still answers the question that I posed earlier. So you've just said here that there will be a survey about comparing to current standards of traffic. Is that going to be for your dump trucks or for the village per se?
Well, there won't be any traffic going through the village because it's been rerouted or routed through from the A23 direct to the site and back out, so it won't come through the village at all.
Okay, so if we already are aware that our systems are really struggling at the moment, like I mentioned earlier, this lady's going to have them all going past her house. People are then going to avoid going that way because they know the dump trucks are there, so they're going to go through the village. So you're not actually solving the problem by moving your dump trucks in, you're moving the cars back out. And I'll go back to the point that our children's safety is paramount. Paramount. I do not want a child going up and down London Lane with the kids that come here, there's a primary school, there's a secondary school, they're already on the road. If they end up under a car in your 2-year, 3-year, 4-year period, you have to take responsibility because we're already at capacity on those roads. People will avoid your dump truck.
We'll be undertaking surveys on the junctions and on the road and assessing their capacity. And there'll be modelling of the junctions to ensure that congestion isn't caused, which is the primary reason why people will reroute their journey elsewhere. Now, we're proposing at the moment one journey every 5 minutes. In the peak period, which is 9 AM and 5 to 6, that's likely to be a very low proportion, and I'd anticipate that when we've done our checks on the capacity of the junctions and the road, that won't dissuade people from using that route. But that is going to be part and parcel of the assessment that we have to carry out and what will be audited by the Highway Authority. They will be checking all of our work to make sure that that's the case. And we'll be doing a safety audit of the route and by an independent safety auditor again, who we have no control over, but we have to comply with what their requirements are. So if there's a safety concern that comes up, that will be addressed. It depends what it is. If as a lady said, there's an accident problem, and that would be identified, and there may have to be some alterations to the highways, improvements of signage. I know the chap over there mentioned about visibility from the junction being obscured by signs. Obviously, so that's something we can address.
I don't think pedestrian children are going to be all signs.
I appreciate that. The point assumes that vehicles aren't going to use that route because of the lorries.
Sorry, could you repeat that question? You're not going to use the microphone. Guys in the room.
Okay, we need to keep looking. This gentleman's next as well. So we just go on to this guy. Go for it.
Thank you. Looking at the proposed route, and that's the one that's guaranteed to be used, my two main worries about danger, highway danger, are the junction at Slough Green for lorries coming back towards the A23. They're going to divert off left. That is not a right of way for any vehicle that has turned right from the Cuckfield Road, comes down from Staplefield. So the vehicles coming down from Staplefield on the Cuckfield Road at that junction have right of way. So you've got heavy lorries. Are they going to be that there is some limitation of visibility there? and the lorry coming from the site, having delivered its load, does not have right of way at that junction. That's problem one, but much more serious is the exit from the A23. That is up a slip road, uphill, with a fully laden lorry, with a T-junction where they do not have right of way, where they're turning left. From their right, at 60-mile-an-hour national speed limit on a curving bend, obscured by trees, is going to be coming any traffic from Warwick. That is surely a very serious accident waiting to happen when you've got this many vehicle movements on slow-moving vehicles fully laden.
Thank you. With regards to the junction on Staplefield Road, I have actually looked at that junction, and I'm afraid I can't agree with you about the visibility. I've checked that, and it would comply with national guidelines.
Look up your accident history on that junction.
Yeah, exactly.
Coming from Cuckfield.
The point's already been made. Yes, point been made. What we will be doing is obviously getting accident data records, which will date back for 5 years. It's mandatory, so that we can see whether there's any particular accident black spots. Now, the junction off the A23, I'm pretty certain has an awful lot of HGVs coming off that. We'll do a survey to
for 2 years. Right.
Okay, so question
the volume of it is not going to change.
Okay, so I think the point's been made. I'm going to take 2 questions from next door. Marie?
Yes, I'm just going to hand you over. I just have a comment about the visibility of that junction. I'm a resident from Slough Green. My house almost looks at the junction, and there is an accident on that junction nearly every month at the moment.
Okay, well, we'll be looking at the accident data, and if there's any particular accident issues that require junction improvements, then that will be examined along with the Highway Authority to ensure that that junction is improved.
One more question.
One more question from next door.
Yeah, it's just really about what you said with regards to the relevant hours that will be worked, and obviously, especially the half day, because the Saturday mornings, Whiteman's Green and the Cuckfield Cosmos pitches, they are fully occupied. There is a massive amount of traffic, and believe me, you've got to look at your thoughts about that, because I would immediately cross out Saturday morning. You've absolutely no chance, because if you did interfere with that and you created danger to all those kids and all the people that congregate around there on a Saturday morning, just for the benefit of a number of golfers in 2 years' time, it just doesn't equate. I'm sorry, it's just, I'd put a pen through that right away. I'd forget about that for sure.
Well, I'm sure that we'll take on board your concerns and consider that in the way that we propose to move forward. Our traffic surveys will include Saturdays to ensure that we have a full picture of exactly what's going on. And if it does show that, there's a congestion issue, then I would imagine that you're most likely prefer to avoid it.
Okay, right, we're coming to a lady here.
Can I just say, I live on the junction at Slough Green Lane. My house, as you're coming out of Cuckfield, is the first house on the left. It is an accident black spot. We have had the air ambulance on numerous occasions. I have an in and out gate I cannot use my first gate next to the junction because the cars are coming round at 60 miles an hour. You are going to just double, treble, quadruple the amount of traffic coming in, and it's unacceptable. My house will have 5.5 days of solid big trucks rounding past, just for, as you say, another 250 golfers. And I just think it's totally unacceptable, just ruining the beautiful landscape of the area.
Can I just answer that, please? Maybe after the presentation, if you could show me exactly where you live. And,
I live at Slough Green House, and it's a very dangerous junction.
We'll take a look at that.
Please do. Yeah.
Okay, right, we're going to come to the gentleman at the back here next.
For those people who regularly use the road between Slough Green and Warwick flyover, they will know already that the surface is totally deteriorated. The road is falling away at the sides. It needs to be rebuilt, and if you're going to put that number of vehicles on it, it will soon collapse, I'm sure. It's dangerous now. So what's it going to be like if you don't do anything about it? Not you, but West Sussex County Council. I've written them about it. Oh, it's on our list. That's all you ever get from them. So I think they seriously need to look at that.
Well, from our position, we'll be doing a condition survey before works start, and there'll be a condition survey after the works are complete, and any damage that's caused by our traffic will be remedied. I can't obviously say.
But it's not super at the moment, that's the problem.
Okay, right, we're going to another question next door, please.
Marie Pelletier. Not sure if it's a fraudulent slip, but you did mention a minimum of 2 years. What's your maximum time span, please?
Hello there, I'm James Jeffers from Rock. 2 years is the time period we'd like to do it in. It's in our interest to do it quicker rather than slower, so because we don't want machinery sitting there for 3, 4, 5, 6 years because it'll cost us a fortune. So we will be looking to do it in 2 years.
What's the maximum? All right, the lady, so we're going to come to the lady here.
Could you tell me whether you've addressed the fact that not all the traffic will be coming from the west? A lot of the lorries will be coming from the east and they'll have to come along the A272. And if they don't come through Cuckfield, they've got to go through Anstey to get to the A23. And they're not all going to do that. They'll take the shortest route they can. It's been proven that the Browns lorries, when they were travelling through the village 2 years ago, didn't go on the specified routes. And when we asked the council about it, they said they had no way of making sure that they did.
Well, we'll be examining the location of any sources of material that is going to be transported to site. And a route will be agreed with that particular supplier. Obviously, our intention is to ensure that those vehicles will avoid the villages. If there's any deviation from that, then we'll immediately stop using those particular sources.
Okay, right, come to the gentleman here.
I understand that you're going to construct a hard standing area just inside the new entrance to the golf course to take the lorries. What is the approximate turnaround time of one lorry?
I would think that's probably something for our contractor to answer. So do you want to defer that?
So, would you mean the turnaround time from source to the golf course, or within the golf course?
From the time it goes into the golf course to the time it comes out, having dumped its load, having its wheels washed?
Right, very much depends on where on the golf course the load is being tipped. Obviously, the nearer to the entrance, the quicker it's going to be. 10 minutes?
10 minutes. And how many lorries will this hard standing area be able to take at any one time?
Yeah, the plan is not to store the lorries on the hard standing.
No, but they go in.
Oh, other way to it. What's the size of it? Yeah, basically, you've got the hard standing and the haul roads, so we won't have any lorries left on the road whatsoever. They'll all be brought in, because presumably there'll be highways issues if we were to do that.
You're having, but the lorries are going in every however many minutes it is.
2.5.
Once every 5.
Once every 5 minutes, okay. So they go in, they dump their load, they have the wheels washed, they turn around, they come back out again, and you're suggesting that there's not going to be any hold-up in that process?
If you've been hold-ups on the highway or on the site? If you've been hold-ups on the site, possibly, but that wouldn't affect the highway.
Pollution will affect traffic.
Why would it? Sorry.
Thank you. Right, another question here for the lady.
I don't know how many people know that between the Bowley parish and the Cuckfield parish, the owner of the site said he wanted his ground level because his tractor couldn't go up the slope. West Sussex County Council gave permission for this field to be totally landscaped. It was meant to take minimum of 2 years. It was going full stop, 5.5 days a week for more than 5 years. The noise of the tipping trucks when they tip, there's a clang clang, and that goes on, and you can hear that a mile away from the site. The dust was absolutely horrendous, and that spread over half a mile sometimes, the dust. The lorries have got to go somewhere. They come in so frequently that they're parked on the lay-by on the A23 to go into the site. And then the site road was 1/4 of a mile long, and you could see them up on the top of the ridge, all parked waiting to tip. Where are these ones going to park?
Can I just ask that? What I'd like you all to do is look at what we've done in the past, because we've just had a contract in Bradford where we put 100,000 tonnes in within 5 months. That was next door to a guy that owned 20 racehorses, and we had to be not only careful about the locals, but we also had to be careful about the racehorses. What we did was dust the presence. We made sure the lorry drivers didn't bang the tailgate. You don't have to bang the tailgate. You might have done that 2 or 3 years ago, but you can. Instead of drive away with it sort of as soon as you tip the load, you can drive away slowly and stop the back banging down. And we managed not to upset racehorses, we managed to not upset the old people's home next door.
The owner is actually the dressage person for England, and he has horses there.
Maybe used a bad tractor.
Can I just cover that point about traffic waiting on the highway? It's absolutely essential that won't happen, and the highway authority certainly wouldn't allow us to for that to happen. There's going to be ample space on this site, not only to stack those lorries if they were turned up at once. I mean, there's 67 in one day. You can easily accommodate those on that site. When they leave...
Yeah, the view is going to ruin the view for 3 years.
Okay, we're going to go next door. There's a question from somebody next door. Go ahead.
Going back to your hydrological assessment, can you ensure that the runoff won't be toxic?
Well, there won't be any toxic materials on site. So
nobody's guaranteed that.
I believe that was covered by Paul in his discussion.
No, I can't see that.
There is no hazardous waste going to be reported onto this site.
Okay, well, gentleman here.
It's extremely heartening that you're going to do this very full survey, unbiased, of the traffic situation. Now, given that you're going to do that, and you're not definitely committed not to go through the village, and Slough Green Lane is the only possible other access, can we have your assurance that if that assessment doesn't come up positive, this scheme will be cancelled?
Yes, I mean, our intention is that that will be the way in and out of sight.
Not now, in the winter, when there's nobody using the road.
As the nearest neighbour to Cuckfield Golf Centre to the east, where our property is probably 80 metres maximum from the entrance that you're going to put in, with 2 years minimum, not the noise, not only of the lorries coming in and out, but as I understand it, from some of the things I've read, you will also have 5-ton dumper trucks moving some of the soil around the site, bulldozers working. You talk about using noise buns, so big, wrapped up bits of topsoil. I can't see they can make the blindness bit of difference. The dust that's going to come in the prevailing winds from the west and land all over my property and our neighbours. I work from home, one of my children's asthmatic. How on earth are we supposed to live with that, living next to a massive construction site for 2 years minimum, which according to the lady far left here, might be 5.5 years?
Do you want to defer that to when the next speakers?
Ingrid will be speaking about how she will be constructed. Can you want to say a few words, Andrew?
My name's Ingrid. I actually own and run Cuckfield Golf, and part of can everybody hear this? Okay? Look, a lot of people here, from what I can hear, honestly, have had concerns or have concerns about this based on previous projects. And we have come into the golf, into the landfill industry in recent years. We're actually bona fide golf course constructors and have been building golf courses for the last 30 years. And this is where this application differs from many of the others that have happened in the past. Because from our point of view, as Robert has been stating, the golf courses in this country are suffering, and it's partly to do with the fact that we have not been able to build golf courses in the past. Now, everybody here is also concerned about who's going to be making the money out of this. Now, Robert could not actually build this golf course from his own funds, so it goes towards the building of a sustainable golf facility for the future that will suppress any other future development. And in terms of answering your question, sir, you're talking about dust control. That's one of the things that we do have dust control on site, because we will be governed by planning restrictions.
What about the noise?
Can you control the diesel fumes?
Noise, fumes, pollution.
Okay.
Right, one more question. Sorry.
Hi, I'm just wondering, on the Parish Council website, there's a highway scoping statement by Abington Consulting Engineers, and you're using very different figures than in that. That is going to have 260 trips per day, occurring between 7:30 AM and 6 PM weekdays only, generating around 25 trips an hour, or one every 2 to 3 minutes. Where have your figures come from? Because they don't marry up.
Those figures were based upon the April to October operating time. We've now consulted with our contractor, and it's been agreed that we should be able to construct the sites over the course of 12 months rather than the 7 months originally envisaged when we put that document together.
Okay, right, we'll come back. We're just going to have one more very short presentation from James Jeffries.
Hello, it's great to speak here. I'm James Jeffries, London Rock. I will be finding the donor sites, finding the materials suitable for the golf course. I know I'll be coming from, I can't say exactly now because I don't know when I'm going to get phone call, it's probably going to get phone permission, but somewhere within 25-mile radius. Sorry, my apologies. I do apologise, it's very, when or if we get phone permission, it's no problem. The materials we will source will be suitable. It's been mentioned they'll be inert. They'll also have to have the right physical properties. They'll have to be compactable. They'll have to be able to do what we need them to do on site. We have supplied, as I mentioned earlier, £100,000 over a 4-month period into Radlet. All the issues that people worried about, we sorted and we appeased them and we made sure they were happy. We've got no complaints whatsoever. We also supplied 400,000 tonnes over 2 years into the Olympics to cover the whole of the Olympic Park with what they call a human health layer. This material had to be actually digestible, basically, so that if the athletes from the board came over and inadvertently digested the soils, it wouldn't do them any harm. So we're well capable of dealing with things like that. We have big boulders in it, but like the mother did if they did, but it wouldn't harm them eventually. We, in conjunction with Contour, want to provide the right material for the golf course. We want Robert to have the golf course for the future. We want the thing to work properly. So what I'd say is basically, if you want to look into us as a company, check out what we've done already. Every site we've ever operated or supplied has been a shot for the future. So Radlett, so marina sites in Leicester, so a portion for England. Basically, if you talk to people, talk to the locals, you'll find out that we're actually a contractor that does what we say we're going to do. So, thank you.
Okay, so just
now, should the new venture take place and the golf course fail in time, and since we heard that the land is no longer suitable for agriculture after all this work, would it be suitable for housing or light industrial use? In the area in
The chap that said it wouldn't be suitable for agriculture, I think, was misunderstanding the comment that was made that...
Only a metre thick, this soil?
When he mentioned about it not being suitable for agriculture, that was because he was concerned about concrete going into sites, I think, if I remember rightly. The concrete that was spoken about by Paul was a crushed material suitable for haul roads only. We are not going to be putting concrete into the areas of the golf course. If the concrete would be sent to recycling depots to be crushed and used in the construction industry, it would not be put into a site like this.
Doesn't answer the question.
Sorry, I forgot about the question. I went through that. I do apologise. I don't know, because I'm not a planning consultant, that this would stop any chance of there being housing in the future. It would make it less likely to be light industrial, because what we're going to provide is a golf course that's going to work for the future. Remind me of the question.
What else do you use it for? Hang on. Oh, sorry. What else do you use it for? It can't be used for farming, and it's
the intention is not for it to go back to anything on the golf course, but it could go back to farming, because there's nothing we're going to put in there that will affect the chance of it going back to farming in the future. But what we're going to do is make it into a golf course.
The access road, the access onto the golf course, which may well be you rather than Paul, is obviously going to go right across the golf course, behind the golf club, and be down near where the end of the 9th tee is at the moment. How wide is that road going to be?
I'll have to defer on that one, because that's not my department. How wide is it?
It will be the width-free track to support tipper vehicles will be 3.5 metres, with obviously we need passing bays along the route of that, one every 200 metres or so.
And have you done a survey behind the actual clubhouse itself? Because I'm led to believe that the runoff, the effluent runoff of the houses, actually discharges somewhere behind the clubhouse.
If that's what's happening, then we'll be investigating it.
And obviously, with the length of the road, if you haven't got any passing places, then the lorries are going to be parked on the road. Going back to an original point about working on Saturday morning, there are something like 490 children participate in football on the two areas, both opposite to the south of the golf course and also to the east of the golf course. A lot of off-road parking goes on at the moment, and there certainly won't be very easy access for the lorries in and out of the golf course.
As I said, we're here to consult, and now you've pointed these things out about Saturday.
Okay, we got one more question from next door, please.
Yeah, it's back to traffic management. Saturday morning, the gentleman just reiterated that about how difficult it is going to be for you. So if you take that half day off, you're going to increase your 2 years by the same amount by percentage terms. Now you come to the midweek and and you've talked at 7 o'clock in the morning till
7:30, I think.
7:30.
7:30 to 6.
Right. Now, even though April and October, for instance, they're going to be quite difficult. You're going to have some bad visibility times. And that amount of traffic going down those roads that these local people talk about, it will be absolutely horrendous. You won't be able to do it. There'll be all sorts of problems. That's going to, again, I think you're going to have to revise your timescales, and it's going to increase the length of time again. I think you're going to be looking at a 3.5-year project, just based on my knowledge and all the people around me and their local knowledge. I think you've got a serious problem with that. And as far as you're trying to sell this point over to the community, we are a very good community there. We're very, very concerned about the villages and the surrounding area. You haven't offered anything outside the golf course. It's been a very selfish argument on your point. Now then, if you were positive in selling this, you should be thinking about all that money that's been put into the land. Okay, it's going into the golf club. I like your presentations and the professionalism that you've shown, and you've shown some good projects. But in this circumstances, we've got to look after this project. What we're saying is, you have got to be more proactive in understanding the community, and you have got to release somehow monies to ease the problems that you're going to suffer if you're not going to have a successful project, because it will be totally unsuccessful if you don't take that on board.
Okay, one more question, come again.
Sorry, there have been a number of questions in relation to what constitutes inert waste, and this is relevant to Stephen's question in relation to what could happen to the land afterwards if the golf club were no longer to exist. And the default position from a planning perspective is that the use of the land would default back to agricultural use. But in relation to inert waste, the European waste codes for inert waste include the following: waste glass-based fibrous material, glass packaging, concrete, bricks, tiles and ceramics, mixtures of concrete, bricks, tiles and ceramics, glass, soils and stones, glass, and yeah, that is the list. So I really can't easily see how that land will be farmable with all of that in it. Can I just also come back to the question of Radley, which was mentioned in the context of traffic. The original permission for Radley was given on the 14th of August 2013. And at that time, and sorry, just stepping back a second, there are a number of people here, including James and Paul, who were involved with that project. But when the original permission was given, 32 vehicle movements per day was asked for. Less than 2 months after the planning consent was given, a further application was submitted to actually vary the conditions for the traffic movements from 32 traffic movements per day to 200, which was granted.
Can I answer that? Yes, go ahead, answer it. To be completely candid, the 32 loads today was a complete mistake. They'd taken the length of the project in total, including the reinstatement and the landscaping of the land, divided that by the amount of loads that were going in there, and that's how they came up with 32 loads a day. We put 100 loads a day, or 200 loads, because it's classed as one in, one out. So that's really, so it's 100 loads a day were allowed in there. We put that in there without upsetting anybody. We had a right-hand turn only, and so we weren't allowed to go left out of the site. Not one vehicle was found going left out of the site. It was policed all the time. We put 100 loads a day in over 4 months. Finished the project.
James, thank you for the explanation, but what it comes down to is effectively poor planning. And we've heard a number of things in terms of questions being asked this evening, where people haven't known the answer, or there be differences in assumptions, and so on and so forth. You are before us as a community asking us to actually support a project which is going to have serious impacts on our lives. And in terms of saying, sorry, on that occasion you didn't plan very well, it gives me, personally, absolutely no confidence in terms of what your proposal currently is and what it will mean for us as a community. Thank you very much.
I apologise that my candidates didn't go down very well. I'd far rather accept when I made a mistake rather than try and come up with some rubbish. That was what happened. We learned from that mistake and made sure we didn't do it again. But the gentleman here.
I just ask a question about the commercial viability of the golf course post-completion of this. I think looking through various things such as Companies House, etc., it doesn't appear that the golf course has significant assets. The land certainly isn't listed as an asset under the company as it stands at the moment. If, from what we gather, you're telling us that the business may perhaps go out of business if something isn't done, with declining membership, I think in the paperwork it makes reference to Manning's Heath having to be sold for housing. I think £15 a round from previous £75 a round. After spending however many millions on redeveloping the course, if I'm your bank manager, what business plan do you have to come to us and say, we think that membership or revenue will go up significantly to make it a continual, viable business?
Obviously, only going through experiences of other colleagues who have done the same project, I've obviously learned and had the opportunity of looking how their businesses have turned around.
Could you share your business?
It's a little bit like having a restaurant refurbishment, where before there was a poor food menu, lack of service, and an opportunity of possibly not what the customer wants. We are looking at complete refurbishment and offering something totally different, which is actually answering the questions of why other clubs are failing. We are ticking all those boxes and more, and creating different opportunities for customers coming to experience different experiences.
So, could you share your business plan with us? You know, if we're Dragon's Den, you know, sitting here at the moment, I think most of us would be saying we're out.
No, I can't. Actually, I haven't got it obviously with me, but I'm sure I'm very happy to give you the stats of my colleagues who have had courses done that have turned around facilities. I'm very happy to share that.
But have you done a business plan for this business?
Well, yes, I have. Yes.
And what increase in revenue do you revenue do you forecast?
I'm hoping for a considerable change, given the opportunity of all the changes we'll make. It's a bit like saying, will you guarantee it's going to be sunny tomorrow? And unfortunately, golf business isn't like that.
No, but I think fundamentally what it comes down to is if the business isn't successful, and if the revenue doesn't come through even after spending this money, you're left with an asset which is probably a lot easier to build housing on now that it's a lot more level than it would be to do anything else.
As we actually said, it's not being level, and obviously all I can say is with the opportunities we've got to make differences, it will make a difference. And,
okay, another question coming from outside next door again.
Hi, this might be a question, or a subject that was brought up before I came this evening, so I arrived a little bit late. But there's a major gas pipe that runs north to south directly across the site, across the beach farm field, which is where Cuckfield Cosmos and Hempstead Rugby Club's children play. And it sits at less than 18 inches below the surface on Beach Farm Field. And something that we've had to take consideration when we've looked at possibly draining Beach Farm Field, which is the field immediately to the south of the proposed sort of entrance site. What considerations have the developers taken to look at this gas pipe, its depth, and how they're going to handle it with lorries coming in and out, and the drainage and the landfill planning on the
We've had discussions with the gas network owner, and there are certain procedures that you must follow if you want to develop near their equipment. There are set distances that you must observe, and as you say, there are set depths greater than which you are not allowed to deposit on a gas main. By understanding these, we've of having to provide crossing points at certain locations along the gas main in order to allow us to deliver the inert fill material to the entirety of the course over the period of the project. And by actually constructing bridges, which are a bit like Bailey bridges, they don't actually bear on the gas infrastructure itself, and they are supported by the soils at either end, so that we can guarantee that no damage to that extremely dangerous asset would occur. If we were to damage it, it would be a very serious issue. And that's why the network operator has very strict guidelines. You may have seen actually in other locations that they have a regular helicopter patrol. And if you seem to be doing something that they don't know about in the proximity of a gas main, the helicopter will very quickly tell you what the score is with regard to that piece of infrastructure.
Does that mean we have helicopter noise as well as anything?
Okay. Even more than you do now.
Okay, gentlemen here at the back. Go.
Thank you. Unlike most people in the room, I am actually a golfer. And since moving to the Sussex area in 2004, I've seen the 9-hole course close at Burgess Hill. That's got houses on it. Half of Hassocks has now got houses on it. The landlords of Haywards Heath Golf Club will not be renewing the lease after 2022. There's 576 members over there you can pick up. Ifield is up for development. So there's a fundamental lack of capacity now within the golf in this area. You don't need to stick 500,000 tonnes of waste on this side to increase your business. You just need to wait for a couple of years and people will come to you.
Okay. All right, gentlemen here.
Yes, thank you. My question is about the financial guarantees associated with this. Bear in mind that 50% of all the water we drink comes from boreholes and 50% comes from Ardingly Reservoir. Now in America, toxic waste has been enormously expensive to remove. Now, I'm sure that you don't want to take toxic waste on here, but you cannot guarantee that there won't be any toxic waste here. We see regularly on our television screens at the moment a waste site somewhere up in North Kent, where the owners of the waste site have just disappeared and left a limited liability company with about £50 capital to pay to clean this lot up. If there is toxic waste in there, we all know who's going to pick the bill up to pick this lot up. Can we have some financial guarantees that there's going to be several £1 million in case anything goes wrong?
The answer, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go for it.
With all landfill sites, there is what's known as the financial guarantee, which you quite rightly identify, that you have to produce in advance of actually beginning a landfill operation. This, of course, is not a landfill operation, but there is no opportunity to import anything but strictly inert materials. If we were to bring anything else into this site, it would constitute waste, and we would require an environmental permit, which, using the construction industry code of practice, we will not require. So, to answer your question, if we were operating a landfill site, we would be forced to produce financial guarantees in order to guarantee the effective.
But the man in North Kent just vanished. He just disappeared into thin air and left everybody else to clean the mess up.
I know the site you're talking about. Yes, he did. We've been operating for 21 years. We've done numerous sites. We've never disappeared. We can only go on what we've done already. the people you're talking about do give our industry a bad name. Unfortunately, I can't speak for them. I would rather they weren't around, but you can't associate or sort of tar us with the same brush as them, I'm afraid. And look into the company. The company's not going anywhere.
Okay, we're going next door for 2 more questions.
Going back to Mr. Bradbury's comments right at the beginning of the session, he mentioned it's up to you as proposers of the scheme to demonstrate that this scheme of the landfill can't be done anywhere else. Can you explain to us what you've done in that regards?
What you actually have to do under in terms of the policy associated with the area of outstanding natural beauty is to demonstrate that the site that we have earmarked couldn't be developed in any other way. And our intention, and we will need to demonstrate this belief very clearly in order to comply with the regulatory arrangements surrounding the AONB. We will then we'll have to produce certain plans and mitigation to demonstrate that the benefit of carrying out this development is able to outweigh the harm that it may cause. And that's how we require it to be carried out. There's no shortcut. It's a very detailed process, and it is our responsibility to carry it out.
Okay, we've got 2 more quick questions coming from next door, please.
I've got one supplementary question. So the benefits you've outlined earlier in your presentation, but much of the discussion here tonight has been about the potential harm of this project. So in your report, will you provide a balance of the benefits as well as the issues that are being raised here in terms of the harm this project could potentially bring?
Absolutely. We'll need to look at all aspects, the negative aspects as well as the positive ones. And certainly without those 2 issues being appropriately covered, it's very unlikely that West Sussex County Council would support the proposal, support the application. So it's up to us to ensure that we provide the most robust evidence, including, as I say, mitigation and other measures.
One last question from next door, please.
Hi, it's a very simple question, but several times earlier in the evening it was referred to this kind of proposal only being valid under exceptional circumstances, and I think that's referenced lots of times. It's not technical, but what's the exceptional circumstance for dwindling golf membership that should, because a lot of the responses that we've had tonight have been reasonably glib and a bit offhand as to, you know, at the end of the day it's just a golf course. Well, then what's the exceptional circumstance for the planning application? Because that's referenced everywhere.
Yes, and it quite rightly is not a definite term. It's a very general term. Allows a wide consideration of benefits which in the course of their development actually constitute exceptional circumstances. That it is a question of explanation. It's a question of collecting evidence and building reports to actually show that there is an exceptional circumstance that exists.
Okay, one last, very final question from next door.
This is a question for Robert. When you go home tonight, Robert, I understand you don't live in Cuckfield, and you weigh up everything that you've heard tonight, and you may well decide this application is not worth persevering with. What will then happen to the golf course? Will you continue to run it, or will you have to sell up?
I'd like to continue to run it, but as in lots of businesses, there are risks, and obviously, that decision I have to make. But you know, I don't work for charity. At the end of the day, I need to get an income and use the terrible word profit that people don't like to be used. But we need to move forward with a better development that's going to create a better income and be viable.
Okay, we're going to have to wrap it up. We're just going to ask for a final statement. If you want to make any conclusions from what you've heard this evening, just for 2 or 3 minutes before Nigel will sign up and the point of the Parish Council.
Yeah, fine. Thank you. It's been obviously interesting hearing all the different views, and it's obviously very personal, and there's obviously some contentious situations. All I can say is that I'm a local businessman. I've had the place for 16 years. I've had no other, you know, my passion is golf. I've been a golf professional at other clubs. This was an opportunity to run my own place, which I've thoroughly enjoyed. As I say, it's not just for 250 members. I have 3 full-time coaches that do 50 lessons a week, in excess of 800 lessons a month. With me coach, we do stroke association, we do children, we do disabled, we do so much for the community. It isn't just keeping it viable with 250 members, it's more than that.
You're ruining our community. In doing what you want to do, this
No,
is ruining the
short term,
community.
like
No,
everything.
not short term. You're risking our shit, sorry. What you are doing is you are ruining our community. You're putting lorries through here, you're ruining the area of outstanding natural beauty, you're putting our children at risk, you are messing things up, and you're talking about golfers like they're some exquisite breed. I really couldn't care. Thank you very
Obviously, there's hundreds of new houses coming in. What are these children going to do as pastimes? Put on their computer games? No, they're just getting around the outside of the school, which is where we are. Not sitting at the computer.
There'll be plenty of other schools. Golf doesn't need to be one of them.
Well, that's true.
Okay, thanks everyone. So we're at the end of the evening. Thank you for your patience. Just give me 1 second. So we've heard a lot tonight. You know, thank you for the participation and contribution. Thank you to the people at the front. It has felt like an oven at the front here, so there's some pretty tough questions. So thank you for putting that time in. Thank you for my parish council colleagues from Anstone, Stanford and Anstone Parish Councils put on tonight. In terms of what happens next, we're in your hands. Keep in touch with the communication that's on both our websites, and we'll be communicating regularly on the channels as well. But thank you, safe journey home. Please be considerate when you leave. There are a lot of people here tonight, and we are looking to find space, and safe journey home.